first off, just start by telling everyone your name, where you're from.
Okay, I'm Rik Freeman. I'm from Athens, Georgia. What else you want to know?
That was great.
Okay.
Introduction. Can you just start off talking about your upbringing in Georgia?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Athens, when I was growing up, was kind of in between. It was a small town. It's a small college town. University of Georgia is there. But a lot of black folks, the way we grew up, it was almost not agricultural, but we had chickens in the backyard. My grandfather had a hog pen, and so we weren't unused to farm animals and that kind of thing. And so a lot of that was around, and really it's kind of somewhat the basis of a lot of what I do, creating art. A lot of my grandmother sang in the church, and I made quilts, and another aunt, her sister, made Afghans, and then my mother was active in the church and made pies and all this. And so for me, my grandfather was a mechanic, but it all kind of registered as something creative, that people were doing different things. It wasn't any painting or drawing or anything like that, but there was music and the creativity from the cooking and making quilts and all that. So it kind of fed into me, and I also loved sitting and listening. As my grandmama used to say, I'd like to eavesdrop on grown folks' stories. But what I was listening to their stories, and that informed what I did as an artist, as a painter. I'm a narrative painter. All my works pretty much tell a story. And that also influenced, like I was reading at a young age. Whenever I see that reading is fundamental, it's like, yes, it's fundamental, do it. It takes you to another world, takes you to places. You ain't got to buy a ticket, go anywhere. You can open a book and you can go there. And then that in turn will lead you to want to go somewhere else in your future, when you're in your upbringing, in your upcoming, in whatever it is you do. You sit there and read and let those stories infiltrate your mind. So all of that got into my artwork and what I do and what I try to do in Quebec.
That was beautiful.
Okay.
Thank you. So can you share with us when you began to become a muralist, and what was the pivotal moment when you came to that decision?
That was probably, I would say, somewhere in my mid to late 20s. I knew about murals from before, but hadn't really thought of it so much. And I got up here in DC in '85, and I was working a regular job, and I'm not of a regular job mindset, so I got fired. And it was funny. In 1988, my life sounded like a blues song or a country song. I got my father died, my girlfriend left me, and I got fired from a job, and my car blew up coming from Georgia up to here from a visit. And on that trip, I had the last painting I had done in the back seat. And by the time I did get to DC, I started working on that. Because I was at that point where, remember the song, "Don't Push Me, 'Cause I'm Close." Yeah, I was at the edge, and I was like, okay, something's bad gonna happen. I need to get my mind into something that's gonna calm me down. So I went back, looked at that last painting, and started working on that. And that soothed me, and that, put me in a different mindset, calmed me and let me know, okay, you got this to do it. And I kept doing it. And then the following summer of '89, there was an ad in the paper for artists to work with kids doing murals for DC Artworks. And man, I've always wanted to do a mural, and I can sit here and do this, work with kids, and get paid. So that's what I did, and that just kept blossoming. As I've always painted large, and murals and that concept of storytelling and all of that, it all came around. It was kind of like full circle. It's like, yeah, you're supposed to be here. This is what you're supposed to do.
Sounds like right place at the right time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow. Can you talk about you meeting your longtime friend, Mr. Rafiki Morris? Rafiki, yes. Got a little tongue tie right there.
Yeah.
Rafiki Morris, thank you.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah. The way I remember it, and I don't know if Rafiki remembers it the same way, was I lived actually right around the corner from him. At that time, he was on 14th Street and I was on 14th and Shepherd. And I was coming home from working on a mural, and I had, pants on, paint all splattered over them, and I stopped at this little Chinese carryout to get food. And he walks in, he looks at me, he says, "Are you an artist?" And that, I guess he's looking at my pants and seeing all the different colors and that kind of thing. He said, "You better be an artist, just like that." So we started talking, but at first I thought, okay, he's messing with me or whatever, and he says, "I'm an artist too." And I was like, okay, cool, And then we go across the street to his shop, and he was doing some prints or something over there, and started looking at his work, and the friendship just developed from there.
He did speak on the pants.
Okay.
He did speak on the pants. He said they were like no other. Oh, wow. So can you talk to us about 100 years in African American history?
Yeah, that piece, the mural, it's a very long wall. I think that wall is like 120 to 130 feet long. It ranges in height from about 8-9 feet to about 10-11 feet. And it lent itself to doing something. You had to do something that had a whole lot of purpose with that wall. I didn't want to do, I've never been an abstract or anything, and I'm not a graffiti writer or that, but there had to be something where you could tell a linear story of Black history, in America. You couldn't tell all of it. You can't tell 100 years in that amount of space, that kind of thing. You can never do that, whether it's that, a movie, a book, or whatever. You can't encapsulate all of 100 years, 400 years, maybe not even a year, But you can look at it and you can take certain moments and certain achievements, certain, areas to where, yes, we've had a long, hard struggle and fight in this country, and just try to bring all of that into it, different accomplishments and just different parts of the history. And so I wanted to be inclusive of all of that, and I've never been one to paint a lot of famous people in my pieces. There are plenty of artists that do that. I'm more interested in telling the story, of what, the way I look at it is love Dr. King, love Malcolm, and you name it. But they stood on everybody else's shoulders, the same as we stand on other people's shoulders, to do what we do now. And that's just the way I look at, I want to present my work. I want to tell that story to everyday people. I'll put some famous people in there, but it's very rare that I will concentrate. Matter of fact, I've never concentrated totally on just that. So with 100 years, I wanted to start it from Nanny Helen Burroughs School with a jockey, a Black jockey, because at the time I did that mural, that was in 91. 100 years before that, most of the jockeys in the United States were Black. And a lot of people don't know that, and of course we won every major race there was to win. And so I wanted to have those jockeys come through those arches of Nanny Helen Burroughs School, and then from there go to the soldiers of World War One. World War One, there was a black unit, the Harlem Hellfighters, and there was this history in the U.S. of they did not want the black soldiers fighting for the American Army. They felt we were going to embarrass them over there. So we get over to France is kind of like, we need bodies, to come in here and help us, in this. And finally they said, we'll take the black troops. They already had Africa Corps, so this is, we'll take the black troops. We don't have all them issues you got. We got other issues, but we don't have the issues you got. So they took the black troops. The black troops go over there. Most of them don't speak French. The officers were French, giving them orders. They had to put on French uniforms and all this. They ended up winning more Croix-de-Guerres than any outside unit, and I think might have been more than any French unit. So it's like, come on, give us our due. And then the mural just keeps going through different struggles like that. Jesse Owens, people in Harlem celebrating a great day, Adam Clayton Powell. It just goes through a lot of our history for, roughly 100 years, and ends up with Thurgood Marshall, right at the time that he retired, which it was really interesting. When I was painting him, they were asking him about Clarence Thomas replacing him. And he said, a snake is a snake, no matter whether it's a black snake or a white snake, it's still a snake. And I'm sitting there on that wall painting, and I'm like, okay, brush drop. It's like,
So, Mr. Rik, just like I thank Miss Cheryl for the amazing River Terrace mural that she contributed to the city, I want to thank you for the 100 years in African American history mural, because I grew up in Deanwood for 12 years, specifically.
Okay.
Like that's the longest neighborhood that I've lived in within the city.
Right.
So I remember going to that Wendy's or that McDonald's or getting out of Ron Brown Middle School,
right,
always walking past, or being in the car and seeing that mural. So I wanted to thank you, because that has impacted my childhood.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the appreciation. That's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool.
It's a full circle moment right now.
Yeah. And I live in Deanwood now.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, been there since 2003.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing we've never crossed paths.
Yeah.
I was born in '98, and I left from around there in 2014. So
Yeah,
wow.
That's cool. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you a question regarding you being a narrative painter, and you really honoring storytelling. How do you feel you have grown as a narrative painter within your works?
I think the works now are more inclusive. I believe now there's more continuity between the figures. Obviously, hopefully anybody with anything, the more you do it, the better you get at your skill. And for me, I place a lot of emphasis as a visual artist and as a painter on drawing, and being able, because to me, drawing is the foundation, and being, I'm a figurative painter also, so it's, being able to handle that figure. I'm not one to project images or anything like that, so a lot of what I do when I'm drawing a figure, that figure is telling that story. If I want to depict a strong woman, well, visually, the only way you can depict a strong woman or a strong person is to make them look physically strong. And so a lot of times my women will look physically strong. But also coming with that is that body movement. And there's a certain rhythm and a flow that I want in and out of all my pieces, to where you can see that they're connected or if they're disconnected, and whether it's, I just did a piece for a series of mine on Bahia, Brazil, to where I've got the Malay or Muslim soldiers fighting the Portuguese soldiers, and it's just telling that story with all that action involved in it, and that moving in and out, and it's at night, and trying to get the different shading to where, just different little highlights that night would give you that you don't see in the day. And still sitting back and looking at the piece and going, I could do that a little bit better, and that kind of thing. So as you're also a constant judge of what it is you do. But the main thing, again, for me, is to be able to tell that story, to see that anguish or anger in that fight scene, to look at a mother, feeding a child, and to see that love, and all of that. And just that painting is saying that, there's nothing in the title that says love or whatever. It's like you just hopefully feel it and tell that story. So I think for me, I've always drawn like that, but again, like you hopefully you get better and better. That drawing, that composition, and everything falls more into place to where now, and it's kind of funny because you look at your work and you say, well, you've reached this certain level. And you don't want to backslide or anything like that. So you just like, okay, you just keeping up with yourself,
So I'm not going to use the word regret
or
regrets,
okay.
But within your artistic journey and on the path that you've been on and still on now, are there any lessons or things that you've learned that you can not only share with other artists that are aspiring to be muralists, but things like that you could look back on your younger self and say, I would have never done this, or I would have done this differently, etc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of hard because you look at it and say, well, if you had changed anything to do differently, maybe you wouldn't be where you are now. Maybe you'd be further or not. I think for me, and in a professional sense, I probably would have stayed in college, and just gotten that degree just because for some reason it seems it helps people more. And at the age I am now, the only way I'd go back to school is if, okay, you're basically going to give me a degree, because of my life's work, that kind of thing. That would be the one thing. And then there are certain opportunities that I saw a little bit later, as far as I went to Savannah State and the University of Georgia. And University of Georgia had a murals, they had a program to study in Italy. And within that Italy program, there was a murals component to it. But that was a number of years after I had gone to school there. So, when you look at stuff like that, and then there's nothing stopping you from doing certain things like that now. But, it's, because I would very much like to learn how to do frescoes. And there's a program in Mexico that I've considered doing. But as far as early on, it's like I say, it's kind of hard to say. I mean, if the one thing I would say is that maybe I should have, stayed in school. But then if I'd have stayed in school, maybe I wouldn't have had the hard knocks, to where, because I kind of feel like the creator finally looked at me one day and kicked me in my butt and said, boy, I didn't put you down here to sell clothes at Sims. I put you down here to paint and draw and do all of that. Get with it, it's like, and I'm gonna keep giving you some hard stuff until you learn, and thank goodness I learned, so yeah, maybe it took that for me to learn, because I can be kind of hard-headed.
Please talk to us about the Douglas Rec Center.
Okay. Douglas Rec was commissioned by DC Artworks, and the rec center itself is small, and it's an oddly shaped building in that it's almost octagonal in that, it's like this all the way around. And there are 3 major walls that face the athletic fields. And so with that, I wanted to do something that you have a lot of kids that go to that rec center. So I wanted to do something that emphasized, education and not athletics. So the first I have this classroom, and then the classroom, it feeds around to where there's this husband and wife, and they're taking their child to the University of Timbuktu in Africa. So it has, they're leading a camel, and the child is on the camel, and the wife is leading, and the husband is in the rear. And, you've got all the bags and everything on the camel. And, it's meant for people to come and ask, well, where are they going? And they're all dressed in white and, have head cloths on. And everyone's look, why would you do something like that? Is to show you that education and knowledge has been in our history for a long time. And that University of Timbuktu is where a lot of the Greeks got their knowledge from, and went. And so with us, that's there, and that we, emphasize that a little bit, so.
So, can you? I know this is a bounce back moment within your journey as an artist, but can you talk about the fire that happened within the studio?
Okay. Did you ask Rafiki that question?
I did.
Yeah, that's more of a bounce back for him than for me. I mean, with us, we had property damage with that fire. Rafiki lost, I know at least 10 good mature pieces of his artwork, and probably more. For us, like I said, we had property damage. If the building hadn't been made of brick and the floor cement, it would have been a lot worse than it was for us. I had some smoke damage to some of my paintings, but not much. And it was a lot of my work that did get that. It was works that I would definitely not say were any of my better quality works. Personally, I think all work is good work, as long as you're learning from it. But that fire happened 6 months and 1 day after I had a heart attack. So when the fire happened, I thought I was going to have another heart attack, just from that just weight that it was doing and trying to figure. And it was after the fact my wife was telling me about it, and she had grabbed this water hose from the house. The fire happened March 25th, and we hadn't turned the water back on for the, because it still freezes at that time of the year, so we hadn't turned the water back on. And the fire department got there, and the police were there, and my wife was telling me that this police officer ran and got me because I was going back into the studio that Rafiki was using. I was trying to get his works out, and this guy grabbed me, and about the time he grabbed me was when this is like really hot, and so I need to get out of, yeah, let's go. And so he got me out of there and everything, and I just remember hitting my knees. I did a couple of paintings on that, because for me it was a good way to deal with that trauma. I did paintings about my heart attack too. That was self-trauma. And so yeah, that was pretty hard to go through. And I don't wish that on anyone, period, but especially an artist, because a book, you've got a manuscript, and chances are you've got copies of that manuscript in several different places. Even if it's on your computer, it's in the cloud, and that kind of thing. But a piece of art, that's gone, it's gone, and you can try to reproduce it, but it's not going to be the same paint. It might be better, but you can't reproduce it. It's gone. So that hurts. And
Wow. Well, I'm glad that you both have, like I said, been able to bounce back from that and
Yeah.
continue to create, in spite of that occurring.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would like to know, we would like to know. Can you give us a glimpse in up and coming projects that you're working on?
Okay. Well, just recently, I was awarded an in-studio residency by On Floor Gallery around the corner. And I am going to be doing a series of paintings on black beaches during segregation and Jim Crow. So I've been doing research on that. Just got back from Atlantic City Friday. There's a beach there, Chicken Bone Beach, and was doing research on that up there. And pretty much everything that I'll be doing with that series will be concentrated on the Eastern Seaboard. So probably, I don't know if I'll go to Martha's Vineyard or not, but I'm definitely going. I've been to, like I said, Atlantic City, I've been to Highland Beach. I'm going to hit a couple of beaches in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Florida. But that's my next project, ongoing project, still doing part of my Bahia series. And not really, I might do some public art pieces. There's some things coming up down the road, but I'm going to have to see and then, apply and see if, I get accepted, if a piece is accepted or not.
Mm. Yeah. Wow. Well, first off, Mr. Rik, congratulations on the series at the On Floor Gallery.
Okay, thank you.
Gallery. Thank you for your time, for your wisdom,
Okay.
for you sharing your story with us.
Okay.
It's much appreciated. And once again, being a native Washingtonian, thank you for the 100 years in African American history. That mural has definitely impacted me personally.
Okay.
Let you know that.
Well, that's cool. And if you ever around the old neighborhood, come knock on the door. Well, call first, because if I'm in the studio, I will not hear you. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. You're welcome, and thank you.